Have you ever noticed how many times you have said these words? This time will be different. This time you stick to the routine. This time you stay consistent. This time you'll finish what you started. This time you'll stop procrastinating. This time you will finally become the person you have been trying to become. And for a while, it works. You feel motivated. You feel focused. You feel committed. Maybe even unstoppable. Then something happens. Life gets busy. Stress increases. Your energy drops. You miss a day, then two, then a week. And before you know, you are back at the beginning. You are back at the beginning, starting over again. And here is the question most people never ask. What if you are actually not failing? What if the reason you keep starting over has nothing to do with discipline? It has nothing to do with discipline. It has nothing to do with motivation or even willpower. What if there is a deeper reason hidden beneath the pattern? Today, I'm going to show you why high-capacity individuals often find themselves trapped in circles of starting over. Why traditional self-improvement advice rarely solves the problem, and the hidden internal dynamic that keeps resetting progress. And before this video is over, you may realize that the issue isn't that you keep falling off track. The issue is that you have been trying to build consistency on top of instability. Let's talk about it. One of the biggest myths in personal development is the belief that successful people never fall off track. That's the myth. That simply is not true. Everyone gets distracted. Everyone experiences setbacks. Everyone has periods when performance drops. The difference is how they interpret it. How do they interpret it? Most people treat every setback as a complete restart. Miss a workout, start over. Break the diet, start over. Miss a goal, start over. Lose momentum, start over. But here is the problem. Here is the problem. The moment you believe you have started over, you unconsciously erase all the progress that came before that. Imagine reading 200 pages of a book, then missing just one day. Would you throw the book away and restart from page 1? Of course not. Yet, that is exactly how many people treat personal growth. They confuse interruption with failing. And that mindset creates a cycle of frustration, because every interruption feels like proof that they cannot be consistent, when in reality, interruptions are part of consistency. That's a completely different way of looking at it. Now, let's go deeper, because this is where most advice completely misses the mark. People assume the problem is behavior, but behavior is usually the symptom. Behavior is usually the symptom. The real issue is often internal conflict. Here is what I mean. Part of you wants growth. Part of you wants comfort. Part of you wants achievement. Part of you wants rest. Part of you wants certainty. Part of you wants freedom. These competing priorities create tension beneath the surface. And eventually that tension begins influencing behavior. Think about Bruce Banner and the Hulk. His greatest challenge wasn't strength, it was integration. Different parts of him were operating with different agendas. Many high performers experience something similar. One part is pushing towards ambitious goals. Another part is emotionally exhausted. One part wants more responsibility. Another part desperately needs recovery. When these internal forces aren't aligned, progress becomes difficult to sustain. Not because you are weak, because you are internally fragmented. And fragmentation always creates inconsistency. Fragmentation always creates inconsistency. That is where many people get trapped. Yeah, this is where many people get trapped. Every time they lose momentum, they look for more motivation. A new book, a new podcast, a new course, a new strategy, a new challenge. And temporarily, it works. Because motivation creates emotional energy. The problem, motivation is not designed to create stability. It is designed to create movement. Think about Iron Man's arc reactor. It provides power, but power alone doesn't create direction. Without a guidance system, energy becomes chaotic. That's exactly what happens when people rely exclusively on motivation. They experience bursts of progress, followed by periods of collapse. Because motivation can start a journey, but it cannot sustain one. Sustainable consistency comes from something much deeper. It comes from alignment. It comes from alignment. One of the core principles of my internal coherence recalibration model is this. People don't consistently perform above the level of their internal alignment. They don't. They don't. Let that sink in. Most people are trying to create external consistency while living with internal inconsistency. They want forced action, but their priorities are unclear. They want discipline, but their values are conflicting. They want momentum, but they are emotionally depleted. The result? The result is constant resets. Imagine trying to build a house on shifting sand. You can have the best tools, the best blueprint, the best construction team, but the foundation is unstable. But if the foundation is unstable, the structure will eventually struggle. The same thing happens internally. Your habits sit on top of your emotional state. Your emotional state sits on top of your beliefs. Your beliefs on top of your identity. If those layers are not aligned, consistency becomes fragile. It becomes fragile. That is why many high performers feel exhausted. They're trying to force stability instead of creating it. So, what do you do? What do you do? Let me give you 3 shifts. Shift number 1. Stop measuring perfection. Stop measuring perfection. Most people define consistency incorrectly. Most people define consistency incorrectly. They think consistency means never missing. That is impossible. Real consistency means returning quickly, not performing perfectly. The goal isn't zero interruptions. The goal is faster recovery. Shift number 2, identify internal friction. Ask yourself, what part of me is resisting this? That's a powerful question because resistance usually points toward misalignment, not laziness, not weakness, misalignment. The more clearly you understand the friction, the easier it becomes to resolve it. Shift number 3, build from identity. Build from identity, not emotion. Stop asking, do I feel motivated? Start asking, who am I becoming? Motivation fluctuates. Identity endures. When behavior aligns with identity, consistency becomes far more sustainable because you are no longer relying on temporary emotional energy. You are acting from internal congruence. Yes, you are acting from internal congruence. Let me leave you with this. One of the most damaging beliefs in personal development is the idea that every setback sends you back to the beginning. It doesn't. It doesn't send you back to the beginning. You're not the same person you were 6 months ago. You are not the same person you were a year ago either. Every lesson, every challenge, every failure, every success, every attempt, every reset, every restart has changed you. The real problem isn't that you keep starting over. The real problem is that you keep believing you are. Because when people think they're back at the beginning, they lose confidence. They lose perspective. They lose momentum. But growth isn't linear. It is interactive. It is messy. It is imperfect. And most importantly, it is cumulative. The goal is not perfection. The goal is coherence. Because when your values, priorities, emotions, and actions begin working together, consistency becomes less about effort and more about alignment. And that's the breakthrough most people miss. You don't need another restart. You don't. You need a recalibration. Because sustainable success isn't built on motivation. It's built on internal coherence. If this message resonated with you, comment here below with the word recalibrate and tell me, what is one area of your life where you feel like you have been constantly starting over? If you are ready to escape overwhelm, restore emotional stability, and build lasting consistency through internal coherence and calibration, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to this channel because you are probably not starting over. You're learning how to move forward differently. You're probably not starting over. You're simply learning how to move forward differently.